stop comparing your kids to every other kid.
Boredom is actually extremely important, and
you only have up until 25 till when your brain will continue to make neural networks. After that, it's only crystallized memories, nothing new.
Oh no.
So
hello and welcome back to another episode of your friendly neighborhood college counselor, where we simplify college admissions for you. Today we have a very special guest on the episode to talk about a topic of utmost importance. I have with me Nirbhika, Senior Consulting Manager at Athena, Masters in Clinical and Developmental Psychology. Welcome, Nirbhika.
Hi.
So great to have you. Now, as we know, students nowadays are facing mounting pressures from their families, society, about navigating the academic and extracurricular expectations and mandates that they face on a daily basis. The goal of today's episode is to guide students on how to navigate those pressures in a way where they're able to retain some degree of mental peace, sanity, and actually perhaps even enjoy their high school experience, which may seem like a foreign concept to many, but it is also a wonderful time that you never get back. So we want students to feel well-adjusted, supported, and feel like they have tools in their arsenal to deal with various challenging situations that will come up. So my first question to you is, in comparison to maybe when you or I went to high school, I think students today have countless activities on their timetable. You know, they'll jump from school to extracurricular activities, to music, to sports, to studying for standardized testing, and then working on their college applications, among other things. Mm-hmm. So based on that, what is your assessment of having such a packed timetable? What is the effect of that on students' mental health?
I think you'll be familiar with the term burnout. Burnout means emotional, physical, and psychological exhaustion because of prolonged stress. Jumbling all of these activities together within your limited 24 hours will lead to burnout. And I've, in my career as a therapist, as a psychology teacher, as a counselor now, I've noticed these cases increasing over time. One thing that I've noticed that kids must have is unstructured time. Within your 24 hours every single day, and you have 7 days in a week, I would highly recommend that you have some time to yourself that is completely unplanned, has no stakes whatsoever, and has some form of movement. I would want kids to have some unstructured time. Now, I know the criticism to that I have so much work, why do you ask me to just go have fun and whatnot? And so many people would come back and say, oh, I'm enrolled into football, into basketball and things like that. So that does not count for unstructured time. That definitely counts for movement, will keep you fit, but will that be unstructured time? No. So there are like longitudinal studies from 922 to 2022, like 100-year-long longitudinal studies on how unstructured time with no stakes, where you're not constantly strategizing, actually helps you do this thing called neurogenesis. It's basically development of new neural functions, like novel neurons. And this happens in hippocampus, which is like the center for memory and learning. So if I have to sort of incentivize you to do the unstructured time, I would definitely say it's going to help you really truly enjoy your structured time. So that's my like number one advice. Now, just to follow up on this advice, a lot of kids would come up to me and say, but ma'am, I have like so much work, and even in my unstructured time, I'm constantly thinking about my work. I'm constantly thinking about all the time that I could structure and get productivity out of. I would say, correct. I completely agree. The only way for you to actually truly enjoy your unstructured time is to plan your structured time very well. This is where you should engage your community, your friends, your family, your teachers, your consultants. They're supposed to pre-plan your time. Make sure that you have an hour to do every 20-minute task, so that you are not pressed for time. You're not just getting it over with. You actually, truly, thoroughly enjoy it. And then you don't have to earn your unstructured time. It's left with it at the end of a week. So I think these two things, even as a consultant initially when I started out a few years back, very intuitively, I would make sure every single scholar that I would work with, that they have a piece of their timetable blank. Nothing. No outcome. You're writing stories, don't have to publish them. You're creating artwork, don't have to put up an exhibition. It's just your personal time where you did something. No one has to know. You don't have to capitalize on it. There is no agenda to it. So, as research also says, it generates new neural functioning. All of those researches conclude in, these kind of people are amazing problem solvers, like complex and simple problems. Because again, you only have up until 25 till when your brain will continue to make neural networks. After that, it's only crystallized memories, nothing new.
Oh no.
So Yeah, so make the most out of this time, and play helps do that.
Got it. All of us have, learned, especially through the pandemic, that having a lot of downtime leads to, some really creative ideas. Like we find what excites us for the sheer joy of doing it, as opposed to doing it because you have to or because you think it's the right thing to do. And it is a rich terrain for creativity. Boredom is actually extremely important. And in a state of chronic stress, when you're constantly in a fight or flight zone, creativity is essentially quashed. It's very difficult to be creative when you're in survival mode. Now, we have seen a global trend in which admissions rates to top universities are gradually falling, and yet, incidentally, the expectations from society continue to mount every single year. And we have seen so many students come through who have worked with us who found that it is incredibly pressurizing and stressful to try and meet the expectations that the entire world puts on us as students. So what advice would you have for students to constructively manage and perhaps harness or fuel this stress into perhaps productivity or success? How do you manage that?
I'll not begin with, okay, don't aim higher or don't reach for something unimaginable. This is your age to actually explore, go above and beyond and see where you land, and whether or not you land on your feet. And even if you don't, whatever, this is exactly the time for you to do that. I would say make sure that all of that is also keeping in mind that there need not be a very big magnanimous outcome attached to it. Like, derive some amount of joy out of what you're doing, and the moment you identify that you're not deriving joy out of it, pull in your community. Actually ask your parents, hey, okay, I'm not enjoying this. Maybe I should choose a different pathway to go to the same destination. So absolutely good to have big goals, but it's absolutely okay to not get really comfortable with the idea that exploration might not lead to, big laurels or gold. Because those outcomes, again, are temporary, but those learnings are what you'll be applying. Specifically, like admissions and all that, I always say this, specifically it being result days and whatnot, I would say these are very tiny aspects of your long lives.
Yeah.
So really zooming out. There's a random statistic I heard. Most of Harvard's admits are postgrad and PhD students. People 30 plus apply to Harvard and then they explore because they've seen life enough. They know where they want to go and they want to give it a shot once they've learned enough. It's okay.
Right.
Like, that's okay. Zoom out, master's, PhD, work X. You don't know where you will land up. There is no need to immediately know where you will. So it's okay to not attach an outcome to exploration.
Yeah, I think so many high school students view their college admission as the end-all be-all of their life. And it really feels like that, right? It feels like if I don't get in, then my life is over.
Yeah.
And while this is an important decision and it is an important chapter, the truth is college is not the only thing that's going to define your success in life. And to reframe how you view it as like, this is really a stepping stone for me to extract as much knowledge from the people around me at whatever college I end up, so I can launch like a career moving forward. Absolutely. I think is so important. What I also wanted to say was that sometimes when rejection comes in, when you don't get into the college or you don't get the award or you don't get the summer program that you really wanted, it can feel incredibly earth-shattering, especially if we tie our self-worth and identity so closely to those external validations that we get. And what's so important is to remember that for high school students, this may be the first time you're experiencing a major rejection. There will be so many more rejections that will come throughout life. And this is a formative experience for you. Like, you should view it as that. Like, this is practice for a life full of rejection from all different areas, right? Whether it's in relationships or whether it's in jobs or in your professional life, whatever it is. And I think that to start viewing rejection as redirection and to find new paths to recognize that maybe that wasn't even meant for me. Maybe the universe has put me on this path for a very different reason that even I don't know. So keeping the faith there, trusting the process, and also making the most of what you have available to you as opposed to bemoaning what you didn't get.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Your undergrad is like your first step towards seeing the world. So wherever you put that step, you will see it just resting assured that you do not require to put that step on a certain platform. It's fine. Like wherever you start out, you're going to reach wherever you direct your course to. And I know there are arguments on like, oh, but it helps to have, this kind of a degree, that kind of a degree. It does, because you've only heard of success stories of like 5 out of a batch of 20,000. What happened to the other 19,000, whatever.
Yeah, you're always going to find your way, right? Whether you take a gap year, whether you transfer, whether you graduate undergrad and then apply to grad school somewhere else. Like, there are infinite opportunities to make the life that you want for yourself.
Yeah, there's a quote from Dr. Daisaku Ikeda, I believe, and he recently passed. He's amazing, and he was this Buddhist, revolutionary, and he used to say, with youth should always remember you have infinite second chances. And you do not exploit that enough. So you put yourself under so much pressure. You're always going to have another shot at this.
What are some really specific actionable tools that students can use on a daily basis that might help? We hear about journaling, we hear about meditation. Are there specific pieces of advice that you've given students in the past that you feel like can be implemented right away, like small baby steps?
One thing that I've noticed in a lot of kids is when they face stressful situations, they are quick to isolate. They're quick to not ask for help because it'll make them look like they can't do it on their own. One thing that really I had to actually coax out so many of my students from their cocoon and be like, hey, let's sit and plan your week. Let's also sit and plan your unstructured time. I've had to actually plan their sleeping hours sometimes. Like, hey, okay, please sleep for 6 hours straight. I do not want you online or doing anything. So I think it really helps to sit down with somebody, and I'm sure you have a friend, a parent, a counselor, a psychologist, or anyone that you feel comfortable with. Sit them down, feel free to ask for help, and actually plan your week out in advance. Give yourself enough breathing space. Don't plan it hour to hour. I have seen most of the kids that I've seen planning their week out, it's hour to hour. Don't do that. Give yourself twice as much time as you would for an hour long. Give yourself at least 1.5 to 2 hours to do it breathably. Take a walk in the middle of your task. Actually get up, get some water. Maybe listen to a song in the middle of your task. Actually, to be able to enjoy it, you will have to plan it in a very breathable manner. That's one thing. After that, definitely have some time to yourself in which you have nothing, no agenda.
Got it.
Don't let anyone tell you what to do and what not to do in that time. Don't be afraid of reaching out to a counselor, to a psychologist. Keep in mind that it's better to seek help, okay, not to use it in a taboo manner, but it's better to ask for help when you're beginning to struggle instead of asking someone to help you once you're at the end of that journey, that you've completely burnt out, you're completely out of your bandwidth. And at that point in time, it becomes very difficult to come out of burnout. It takes years sometimes. So I would say at the start, keep a very open communication channel with a couple of people that you feel safe with. Just make sure that's open.
No, I completely agree. I think feeling overwhelmed can lead students to feel paralyzed and feel like they can't ask for help or reach out. They don't feel capable of perhaps being vulnerable in that way. Perhaps they might feel like they're a failure, or they let their parents down, or they're a disappointment. And the truth is that existing in the state of chronic stress is not normal, and it does not have to be your reality. Just because it's common, just because everyone does it, does not make you cool for sleeping 3 hours a night. It does not make you cool for not eating anything but coffee. And you do not get a trophy for studying far more than your brain or body will allow you to do, right? So I know that sometimes it becomes a competition, it becomes almost like a point of pride for students, and it's incredibly counterproductive. You will do sorely much worse on your exams, on your academics, when you have utterly worn yourself down. So prioritizing sleep, prioritizing nutrition, eat balanced meals, for goodness sake. It's so difficult to function on an empty stomach. And I do think exercise has a role to play. I always feel more alert and mentally sharp when I have done some form of exercise. There's ample research that shows increased academic performance correlating with physical activity for students, and it's just something that gets missed out so much, right?
I agree. I think this competition of, oh, I suffered more for this whole, oh, you got a scratch, I got a fracture kind of mindset about academic achievements, that, oh, I worked so hard, my effort was greater, I sacrificed so much for it. You don't have to suffer it. Like, you don't have to suffer your education.
There's not a admissions criteria measuring how much you're suffering quotient.
Yeah. So I definitely ask my scholars to like say it once a day at least. I refuse to suffer education. Say it right in front of me. Why are you suffering your education? If you're not enjoying it, speak to your teachers. If you're actually really struggling in a subject or something, don't wait till you have failed 4 tests so that you can show you're suffering and struggling and then talk to someone, right? So refuse to suffer your education.
No.
Not
at this age. You're so young.
Yeah.
Life is stressful enough as an adult that this is the one time where like you have the opportunity. It's really easy much easier to say than do, but if you can find a way to enjoy and derive delight from this process of discovering yourself, of exploring your potential and finding new things out about yourself, then I think that's truly beautiful, and hopefully you all can see the joy. And so to be able to manage our internal narrative, our inner monologue about ourselves and our own worth is such a crucial skill. And if we can talk ourselves through really challenging situations while keeping calm, then I think it's an incredible skill for life, right?
Absolutely.
As we draw to a close, my last question is actually not on behalf of the students, but on behalf of their parents, their family members, their teachers, their cousins, relatives, whoever else is in their lives, and maybe they see that, that student is struggling with their mental health. What advice would you give a parent, for example, to best support their child?
I think I'm also a Masi, I'm also an aunt, and I've also been a teacher and whatnot. One thing I've noticed is parents really, as when their kids were babies or toddlers, they would like child-proof everything, right? So that would protect the child and whatnot. Now the definition of child-proofing while your kids are teenagers, while you're watching scientists at play and whatnot, would be to create a safe environment. Stop comparing your kids to every other kid. I also noticed the constant comparison, specifically in like high-end schools and institutions, that everyone's got a 1550 on their SAT. You should do better. You should do more. You can do 10 more. You can do 30 more. You can, but I mean, that kind of goes against the entire ideal of creating a safe environment. Like, do you have the potential? Do you want to? Are you going to naturally enjoy doing that? If you're not going to naturally enjoy it, it's fine. So many kids have passion projects, right? Maybe spend more time in your passion project then. Another thing would be kind of gauge your child's journey from the perspective of what you were doing when you were 14. You weren't juggling so many tasks. World was not this badly competitive, and NYU was a likely school. So let's actually rest assured a little bit that, your child will be fine. It's okay.
I think, 2 things that I took away from your answer. Number 1, comparison is really counterproductive and is the thief of joy.
Yes.
Comparing students to others is really damaging to their mental health. And the system is already set up in such a way that they are already pit against each other. There's rankings and there's all these standards that they're competing against. So as a parent, don't add to that. And number 2, don't project your own experience on your student's context when the world is completely different, their school is completely different, and the level of expectations upon them is to sort of contextualize your child's experience and their mental health in everything that they're going through.
Yeah, and in order for your children to be able to ask for help in time, you will be the first point of contact. Like, as parents, you will be the first point of contact they feel safe around. Make sure that they are not afraid of saying that, hey, not getting a 1550. So make sure that's coming naturally to your kids.
I think it's important as parents to closely monitor signs of stress even before the kid comes to you and asks for help, like to try and observe, are they appearing more isolated? Are they retreating into themselves, right? That is a common sign of a student going through a stress and not knowing how to ask for help. So being very sensitive to any changes from their kind of baseline normal behavior will help give you an indication of any intervention required. Maybe not, right? But just like pay attention to your kids closely, especially during this time of their life.
One thing I would say, in order for parents specifically to create a safe space, is for you to have a safe space. So also have a solid network of friends. I understand this is a very stressful journey for even parents. I just know so many of the parents of the clients that I have like halted their entire life during the application season and whatnot. I would say normalize the environment, lighten it up for yourself as well. Go out with your friends, actually have fun. Do not make it just about the applications, because again, I always say this during just a day before the results, I say, I'm only going to say all the best to my scholars, because if I make a deal about it, they'll make a deal about it. So it's one part of their journey. Chill out a little bit. So also take care of your own mental health.
Yeah. And self-care can be really valuable in that. Like you mentioned, whatever it means to you to take care of yourself, you know, for some that might be skincare, for some that might be making your bed in the morning or going out getting some exercise or journaling or meditating. Prioritizing how you take care of yourself is actually going to translate into better results down the line. Like, colleges don't want anxious and depressed kids, as much as it sucks. Like, for them, they want healthy, well-adjusted, and happy children on their campus.
Absolutely.
They would prefer that to kids with perfect scores across the board who are absolutely miserable and not really functional to contribute, right?
And for 4 years, you'll be immersing yourself in a different culture, in a different country, in a different environment. I would want you to have functional faculties instead of a burnt-out husk going to college.
I know.
Like, I have asked like so many of my stressed scholars who haven't slept in like days, I would be like, so you want to just reach the finish line dead? Why?
I know.
Completely exhausted and burnt out. How will you enjoy your college life wherever you are?
So the next couple weeks represent a lot of results coming out for students, many favorable. We've seen so many wonderful acceptances and some not so favorable. Some students do get deferred, they do get waitlisted and even rejected during this time. But what advice would you give a student who maybe didn't get the outcome they were expecting?
So my first advice would be, okay, sit with it. Sit with the emotion. I understand you're grieving. So grieve, sit with it for a bit, but not for too long, because you're grieving an imagined future. You're grieving the loss of what your life could have been at Yale or at Brown or whatever. And just know that your experience there could have been extremely different from what you had imagined. So you're grieving the loss of an imagined future. Apart from that, what got rejected was your application on a piece of paper written in far fewer words that are required to define you properly as a person. So you as a person haven't been rejected, and only a piece of paper with some words that were anyway evaluated by some very stressed, pressed for time admissions officers who probably missed their lunch. So it matters a lot less as compared to what you are giving it the weightage. Lastly, you owe it to your RDs to give it your all, and do not sell yourself short. You have some amazing things in store.
Thank you for watching another episode of your friendly neighborhood college counselor. If this video was interesting, maybe share it with one of your peers who might also be going through a hard time in high school, who might benefit from some of this advice. Do be sure to hit subscribe, like this video, and leave in the comment below what's one thing that you do that will help your mental health when you're feeling stressed out. See you next time.